Chrysler Sebring sedan, all new for 2001, and bringing a new standard of styling, performance, safety, and refinement to the crowded midsize sedan segment. No more boring sameness. Sebring's distinctive, classy Euro lines say this is something new, adventurous, out of the ordinary. Yet Sebring offers all the practicality and utility a customer might want. There's no mistaking this sedan in a crowd. The definitive Chrysler styling cues are there in the signature front egg crate grille and winged badge, contributing to the elegant look. So customers get the best of both worlds. All the practical function and utility family-oriented buyers could want, wrapped up in a package that can turn heads and release an adventurous spirit. As the newest sedan nameplate in the Chrysler brand lineup, Sebring should hit a bullseye with target prospects. They're confident, gregarious, and active, but with a strong sense of family and responsibility and a need for practicality. These prospects are most likely professionals, and they want to look as successful as they aspire to be, or already are. Sebring fulfills their needs and allows them to stand apart from the crowd in a distinctive, classy vehicle. Daimler Chrysler has made a new commitment to the midsize sedan segment with the introduction of the Sebring sedan. Sebring offers enhanced value with features customers expect to find in larger premium vehicles. It has a high level of refinement due to improvements which have significantly lowered NVH and enhanced safety, handling, and performance. The 2001 Sebring sedan, distinctive, classy, adventurous. Finally, an exciting alternative to the midsize sedan.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Philip Ayub, National Product Trainer with Daimler Chrysler Academy, and welcome to the 2001 Chrysler Sebring Immersion module. In this module, we're really going to cover every Sebring vehicle that you have now and that will be coming a little later on. Now, I got to tell you, about a year ago, almost to the day, so last October, myself and the other two product trainers, Sean McLean, Larry Caruso, we went down to the Chrysler Technology Center for our own immersion day on this vehicle. And you know, I've been to quite a few in the past, and by far, this was the one where the platform team, the engineers, and the designers were the most excited about the product that I've ever seen. And the reason is that we had a pretty remarkable vehicle with the previous generation of this vehicle, if you will. And by that I mean the JA platform, which encompassed the Stratus, the Cirrus, and the Breeze. And everything we loved about that vehicle, everything that our customers loved about that vehicle, well, we've maintained, we enhanced, and then we supplemented them with a whole host of new features on these Sebring vehicles. And what one guy told me at this immersion, he said, you know, we were given a clean sheet of paper with the Sebring cars, with the JR platform. We were told, guys, go out there and basically do whatever you want and really up the ante with the competition. We really want to stand head and shoulders above everything else that's out there in the compact car segment. And I think they did a really, really good job. Now, what we're going to talk about during this presentation is how this is going to impact you and your presentations in showroom. Now, up here you'll see a quote. The 2000 Chrysler Sebring, sexy and sophisticated. Now, I didn't write this quote. This is taken right out of the National Post recently when they got a chance to review these vehicles. Now, how often have you heard of a compact sedan being referred to as sexy? Not very often. And you know, and this is really a great credit to what we've done with this vehicle. And when you take a look at what's out there, and we are going to go through that a little later on, we're going to talk about the key competitors because they were very, very important in the development of this vehicle. You're going to see that, well, perhaps the way to sell this vehicle is on its distinctive styling, on its attitude, on its personality. In this module, we're going to look at the key features of the vehicle. And when we talk about key features, what we're really talking about are the hot buttons that your customers expect you to push when they come in to your showroom or store. They really want to know, first off the bat, what's new about the vehicle, what's going to make it distinctive, and what is going to set it apart and make them want to have that vehicle. So we're going to go through these features. Then we're going to organize them among the 5 core systems. And you're all very familiar with that because we basically use that in your price and data books. We use that whenever we run a workshop or a ride and drive seminar. And we're going to be able to outline it as far as styling and construction is concerned, suspension and handling, powertrain, comfort and convenience, and of course, safety and security. And there are an awful lot of innovations and firsts in all of those 5 categories. Then we're going to look at the key competitors and how that impacted the whole philosophy and design theme of this vehicle. Now, some of the key competitors included the Toyota Camry, the Ford Taurus, the Oldsmobile Alero. We also had the Nissan Maxima, the Volkswagen Passat, and the Honda Accord. We'd also like to add to that the Malibu, and also vehicles such as the Audi A4 and the BMW 3 Series. So we really set some pretty lofty goals that we wanted to attain as far as benchmarking our new group of Sebring cars against. And you'll be amazed at how we did that. The way the engineers went about this is they basically looked at some of the best features of some of these competitive vehicles and said, okay, now let's say the Honda Accord, the Volkswagen Passat are really, top of their class as far as noise, vibration, and harshness dampening are concerned. Can we satisfy at least those requirements with the Sebrings? And if we can satisfy, can we even exceed them? And we went through column after column of features and benefits that we wanted to meet based on these competitors. And as I mentioned, when you've got in that class of company, BMW and Audi, it's tough competition. You're dealing with vehicles in a whole different price category, and yet we were able to, at the very least, satisfy and more often than not exceed and delight those expectations in our customers. Now, if we take a look at the key features, now some of them up there that you'll see, well, the first one is the all-new design. Well, of course, we're going to cover that. It's what's going to bring people into the showroom, definitely. When they see the vehicle, there's no mistaking it for a Chrysler. It doesn't look like anything else on the road. Then we're going to go through some of the features we have dealt with as far as reducing that NVH, making it one of the best-in-class vehicles as far as quietness and handling is concerned. We're going to talk about some of the design features that are also functional, such as the headlamp assembly. The suspension on our vehicles, on this class of vehicles, has also always been very, very remarkable and very sophisticated for a vehicle in its class. We've always had a multi-link suspension setup. And we're going to talk about that and what the benefits are to you and to your customer. We're going to talk about some of the new technology we've put in, such as ABS Plus, and what that means. And some of the other features we're going to talk about are the new engines, the new powertrains, some of the visual effects, such as the larger wheels and tires, some of the exclusive features that we offer as a brand and as a manufacturer, such as the auto stick feature. A lot of people don't understand what really that is and how best to demonstrate the benefits and the enjoyment that that feature provides in an automatic transmission. We're also going to go through some of the interior features, some of the safety aspects of the vehicle, and of course, some of the comfort and convenience features of the vehicle. Now, if we start with our first of the 5 core systems, that would be styling and construction. The first thing we're going to talk about is distinctive styling. And when I mention distinctive styling, I'm talking about 2 points, really. Yes, it is distinctive from anything else out there in the field. And yes, it's also distinctive within itself, within its own group of cars. There are 3 vehicles in the Sebring family now. There's a 4-door sedan that we have right here. There's the 2-door coupe. And coming shortly, there will be a convertible Sebring. Now, they all look very much the same. There is a family lineage, an inheritance apparent between all the vehicles, yet they are built on different platforms. The 4-door sedan and the convertible are based on the new JR platform. However, they share no sheet metal amongst the 2 of them. They're very, very distinctive. The coupe, on the other hand, is built on the ST22 platform, which is a joint platform shared with the Mitsubishi Eclipse, and it is built at our Mitsubishi plant in Illinois. And I'll talk a little bit about that vehicle later on. But when you look at them, they are very, very distinctive from what's out there, but also amongst each other. They appeal to a different buyer, very much like we saw in the opening video segment. Now, what are these vehicles about? Well, it's really about attitude, it's about personality, and it's about style. The message from Mr. Brust, our president and CEO, when we were in Windsor at the beginning of this launch program, was that we're not going to sell these Sebrings based on price. If somebody's coming in strictly on price and they don't get it when they look at this vehicle, well, perhaps we don't have the vehicle for them. If they want a compact sedan that fits into that middle-of-the-road feature and demographic, maybe they should go down to a store down the street, one of the competitors. This is very much what we did with the PT Cruiser. If you remember our advertising, you'll see the billboards. They'll say, get it, don't get it. Luckily, 80% of the people get it, and that's why we're having such success with those vehicles, you know? And every time I work an auto show, people come up to us, and whether they've had issues with some of the reliability of the vehicles in the past, all of which we've addressed, and we'll talk about that through the course of this module as well, the one thing that is a constant and very, very consistent in their respect of our corporation, of our brand, is our design. They always talk about Chrysler cars being very innovative in design, and that's what we bank on. We get them, we hook them with the design, and when you look at these vehicles, there's no mistaking them for Chrysler vehicles. The impression that the customer is going to get is that it stands apart, it's something they want to be seen in. The other thing we talked about when we were down in Windsor with Mr. Brust was that when you look at some of the competition, he compared it to ice cream. He said, a lot of the competition out there is plain vanilla. We're offering you every flavor in the ice cream truck at Chrysler. If you want to be an individual, come see us. If that scares you, well, we can't help you there. Anyway, talking about the design, there are some features that really make it stand apart. Now, the very first thing that all our vehicles have at Chrysler, we established as a brand identity, is cab-forward architecture. Now, what is cab-forward architecture? Well, from a functional point of view, it allows us to push the wheels to the very four corners of the vehicle, to widen the track, lengthen the wheelbase. So we're giving the car a very solid, a very wide footprint, which adds to the stability as far as the suspension and handling is concerned, but also visually, it gives us a very muscular stance, a very sort of hunched down look to the vehicle. And when you look at this vehicle, it is very, very sleek, very aerodynamic, very purposeful on the road. When you look at the design of the front end, you can tell that we're not ashamed of who we are. We're making a very, very bold statement with this vehicle, and that's evident with the wing badge. It's very prominently displayed on the front end of the vehicle. It also functions as an air intake for the engine compartment as well. Underneath, you'll notice the egg crate grille motif, and that's something that's been carried through from the Concorde design. It was pretty innovative when we did it on the Concorde. It certainly turned a lot of heads, and we're carrying it through. Now, why are we doing that? Well, we believe that our vehicles should all have a family resemblance. You know, and that sounds pretty self-evident. However, when you look outside, when you go out into the parking lot later and you take a look at some of the competition, you'll notice that in their lower-end vehicle, in their less expensive lineup, they don't always reflect what they're doing in their luxury vehicles. Are they ashamed, perhaps, of associating the entry vehicles with the top-of-the-line vehicles? Who knows? With us, we believe in a trickle-down effect, not only in design, so giving our customers the benefit of what we do in our 300M, in our LHS, whatever, but also a trickle-down effect in our technology as well. And as we go through this, you'll see what I'm talking about. As we move along the vehicle, some of the other improvements we've made, we wanted to address this NVH issue, the wind noise issue as well. Well, from a design point of view, we were able to tuck the windshield wipers outside of the windstream. And the way we did this is we built this little cowl here with a little bit of a lip that redirects any airflow clearly above the wipers and over the vehicle. Now, it prevents any chattering and lets the wipers also do a more efficient job when they're operating. As we move along the vehicle, you'll also notice that we've run this sculpture line up on the roof as well. Now, this serves two purposes. It accents the fact that it is a wedge-shaped, a very aerodynamic looking vehicle, but it also redirects any wind and water away from the side glass and the door openings. When we look at the side of the vehicle, you'll notice that we blacked out the mirrors and the DLOs, and DLO being the trim surround around the window openings, the door openings, and that's to give it a very much European look. And you're going to hear that an awful lot about this vehicle, because when you look at it, you notice that there's an awful lot of economy of scale. There's not too much sheet metal that's been wasted. It's very tight. There's not too much overhang front or rear. It's very hunkered down, very much, you know, broad-shouldered, very muscular appearance to the vehicle. We've also increased the thickness of the side glass by 1 millimeter to 5 millimeters. That's a 25% increase. Now, I know a lot of you here are going to say, you know, Phil, what are you trying to pull over us? What's 1 millimeter going to do? Well, the difference is a 3 decibel drop in the interior volume. Now, do you know what that represents? 3 decibels. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's twice as quiet. That's how quiet this vehicle is. And you'll really notice when you get a chance to drive it, drive the new V6 with the windows up, don't talk, and you'll see. It's a charm. Something you would see in a vehicle much more expensive than a Sebring. When we look at the front end of the vehicle, starting at the front with the headlamp assembly, I mentioned that we had new headlamps. Now, we did this to deal with a number of issues. In the past, with some of our other vehicles, not just the JA vehicles, we've been accused of having very nice-looking headlamp assemblies, but they weren't very powerful. So what did we do? We made the whole cluster a lot larger, 30% larger. And what we have also accomplished, we removed all the optics from the polycarbonate lens, the plastic lens, which is chip and crack resistant as well, and we've included them as part of a computer design and shaped reflector and bulb assembly. Now, this has allowed us to increase low beam output by 50% and high beam output by 100%. Moving on from a styling point of view, we have a very sharp crease line here that carries into the flared wheel arches. We also have a bit of front lip or front spoiler design built right into the front fascia of the vehicle. As we move along here, we wanted again to emphasize the broad shoulders of the vehicle by flaring the wheel arches. They carry into a skirt effect, a ground effects motif down here below the doors. We have a very high belt line on this vehicle too. Again, that's to inspire a sense of comfort, of cocooning, of security to the vehicle. And studies have shown this, and car clinics have shown this. The higher the belt line, the more people feel comfortable and cocooned within the vehicle itself. From a construction point of view, we have gone to what we call a full aperture construction for the door assemblies. Now, the aperture is basically the sheet metal that is right here that the doors are mounted into. And we've gone to one-piece construction. There are no seams or welds, and I'll invite you to take a look at it later on or do your own walk-around demo on it. And the reason we do this is to eliminate the possibilities of BSRs, or buzz, squeaks, and rattles, developing through the service life of the vehicle. We also use bonding agents and metal adhesives to hold all the metal pieces in place, and again, to eliminate any possibilities of friction developing between these parts and leading to squeaks and rattles. The assembly also features a triple seal rubber construction on the doors, again to eliminate the possibility of wind noise, which would lead to NVH problems. As we move along to the back of the vehicle, you'll also notice that thanks to the cab forward architecture, the wheels being pushed away, it really limits the amount of curvature that we have to deal with inside the rear compartment, the seating compartment. So there's a lot less climb-in or intrusion into the vehicle, better ingress and egress outside of the vehicle. The rear trunk lid, again, features a bit of a spoiler effect, a little bit of a kick-up on the lip. It is very, very reminiscent of a 300M. It's got the wraparound tail light design, and again, this sharp crease at the bumper line and the ground effect skirting motif happening right around the back of the vehicle. Some of the construction elements that are apparent on the vehicle is instead of having the traditional luggage crusher arcs or hinges going right into the volume, or the usable volume of the trunk, we've gone to a 4-bar hinge design on this trunk assembly. It's a lot more expensive to design and manufacture, but well worth it, because when we quote a volume figure, a cargo capacity on the vehicle, it's an actual usable cargo capacity at that point. Now, how is this vehicle constructed? Is it a unibody? Is it a body-on-frame construction? Well, it's a very unique assembly process that we use with the Sebring vehicle. It's called a rail-through construction. A lot of vehicles in this class are a unibody construction or a uniframe. This is basically, it looks like a truck frame. A lot of people would pick that out as what this would be. And you've got structural cross members that work in conjunction with this rail that runs from front to rear on the vehicle. It is a part of the unibody construction. It is made out of formed sheet metal as well. But what it does is it makes the vehicle very, very stiff, torsionally and in bending strength as well. On a traditional unibody construction, you would have rails, but they tend to stop about here in the back and about here in the front. The whole load of the passenger compartment is left to be carried not by rails, but by the exterior sills that run on the outside of the vehicle. So the vehicle has a tendency to be inherently a little bit softer. Every time we launch a vehicle, we kind of hammer it home to you guys that it's stiffer, it's this, it's that. Why is it so important to make the vehicle stiff? Well, the stiffer the vehicle in both directions, the less we're going to have BSRs, or buzz, squeaks, and rattles. The less you're going to have problems with inner panels inside the cabin starting to work themselves loose and moving against each other. Door panels, the instrument pad, whatever. It also allows the suspension to do what its primary job was, and that is to dampen any road irregularities. The suspension basically is there to protect the occupants, to smooth out the ride, to, in a sense, keep the rubber planted on the ground and the shiny side up on the vehicle, correct? Well, if all of a sudden it has to deal with also a body that's twisting on you, well, it's just been assigned a job that it really doesn't want to do. And eventually something's going to give, and it's going to be the panel rattling, the BSRs, the NVH problem that's going to start to surface in the vehicle. One of the things that comes up during the auto show circuit, when we get the chance to basically see what you as sales consultants deal with on a daily basis with customers that perhaps have not had a new vehicle in 6, 7 years. You're doing your walk-around presentation, you pop open the hood, and they look at it and they go, you know, what has happened? It doesn't even look like an engine anymore. You know, where are the spark plugs? Where's this? Where's that? Can I work on this thing? And then with the PT Cruiser, I remember this happening during the auto shows. They said, well, you know, this is all great, but where's the battery? And I had to show them. Well, just to give you a heads up during this presentation, I wanted to outline why we put the battery where it is and where exactly it's located. It's located in the front side fender, driver's side. The reason we put it there, it's sort of simplistic to say it's just to increase battery life. It serves a number of purposes, one of which might be packaging. There simply might not be enough room in the engine compartment. Also, you have to remember, the engine compartment is a pretty hostile environment. It's hot, it's wet, it's dry, it can be greasy, there can be an awful lot of things going on. We want to protect that battery to give you all the cranking power you need when it gets cold. Also, one of the things we found out working with insurance industries and looking at insurance statistics is that on impact, if the battery is damaged, how is it damaged? It's going to crack. And when it cracks, you're going to get battery acid spilling everywhere. The closer it is to some of the more expensive and more complex electronic components, the higher your repair cost is going to be. So working with them, we went, well, if we can isolate the battery, yeah, it does get damaged. It's only battery we're replacing, and it's not a powertrain control module or a transmission control module or any such equipment. So that's something you want to keep in mind. What are the benefits to you and to your customer? You can say, well, we do these things so that our cars can get a better insurance rating and keep the insurance costs a little lower for you. However, question still remains. What do you do if you want to give your neighbor down the street who doesn't own a Chrysler a boost because his vehicle didn't start that morning? Well, there are battery start points or jump points located underneath the hood. Now, this is also a good moment to take a pause and explain a little bit what we do that is very self-evident to us as sales consultants for Daimler Chrysler and as trainers, because we live and breathe these vehicles on a daily basis. We mark everything under the hood of our vehicles that is user serviceable or user verifiable in yellow, correct? When you take a look at what the competition does, it seems pretty obvious that you should do that. Just, you know, make it a little bit more user-friendly, the vehicle. They don't. You look at some of the imports, and the oil dipstick is sometimes marked in red. Well, to me, red means stop, don't touch, don't even go there, correct? So it's some of the little things that you want to keep in your bag of tricks during your walk-around presentation. The next 5-core system that we really want to talk about is suspension and handling. Our previous generation of car in this class, the JA platform, really was perhaps underappreciated for all the sophistication that we built into that vehicle. It had the same kind of suspension that we're dealing with here. Mind you, we've refined it to a greater degree in this platform. And that's what we call an SLA front suspension, or short long arm front suspension setup, and multi-link rear suspension setup. You'll see up here that it is quite a complex system, a lot more complex than your traditional McPherson strut suspension. We have an awful lot of componentry, the short arms, the long arms, cross members. Now this cross member is tied right into those rails that we talked about in the rail through construction, and again, give the vehicle a lot more structure, make it a lot stiffer. Now, the advantage of a multi-link or an SLA suspension is that it allows camber adjustment during compression or during cornering. And what that does is it helps maintain a maximum contact patch with the tire on the road. So it means that more of the tire's surface is going to stay planted on the road, whereas a max strut will just move on an angle, and as you compress, a little bit less of the tire is in contact with the road. Now, this is very, very sophisticated. In the rear, we have an adaptation of that is applicable to the rear suspension setup called a multi-link rear suspension, which again allows this flexibility of camber to always optimize the contact patch. So you're going to get a vehicle that's going to handle just that much better. The braking system was also something that we really wanted to address on this vehicle. And I mentioned benchmark vehicles at the beginning, like some of the competition that we looked at, we spied on a little bit. You know which vehicle we looked at to determine what kind of feel we wanted on the brakes with this? The BMW 3 Series. Now, I'm not going to tell you that's a bad car. That is a wonderful, very dynamic automobile. And we looked at the braking system on that and we thought, if we can deliver that kind of braking performance in our Sebrings, well, we deserve a pat on the back. We've done a great job. And how did we achieve that? Because we did achieve it. We even surpassed it in some areas. Well, we're offering a standard feature 4-wheel disc brakes on the Sebring vehicles, on all the Sebring vehicles. It says up here it's a 15-inch disc brake. Well, that's a little bit misleading. The actual rotor itself is 11.1 inches, but the whole assembly requires a 15-inch wheel to fit because of the calipers that are a lot beefier. They're mounted directly to the knuckle, so they're very, very stiff. There's going to be very little flex. We also went to a steel piston inside the caliper as opposed to a plastic piston, again, to maximize brake feel. We've strengthened all the brake lines and reinforced them because on braking, a lot of brake fluid is pumped hydraulically from the master cylinder down to the calipers under a great deal of pressure, and the rubber lines have a tendency to expand, and that's what gives you a little bit of mushiness in your brake pedal. The stiffer we can make it, the more positive your brake action is going to feel, and the more confident you're going to feel using those brakes. So that's what we did to satisfy and even exceed our expectations, benchmarking it against some of the top European vehicles. We also went to a thicker liner. And we also, on the vehicles that are equipped with the optional ABS, remapped the whole software package on the ABS. And now we can allow it to function at a much lower speed, at 8 kilometers an hour. We also reduced the amount of feedback or kickback through the pedal that a driver would feel when the ABS kicks in. And we've also incorporated EVBP, which stands for Electronic Variable Brake Proportioning on the vehicle. Now, what is that exactly? Well, instead of having a mechanical bias valve that adjusts for, is preset for the balance between front and rear brakes, because most of the time your front brakes are doing all the work, because that's where all the energy is transferred during braking. The electronic system uses a microprocessor to determine load and speed so that when you brake, it's going to balance the front-rear brakes to limit the amount of front nosedive you're going to get under braking. So it keeps the ride a little bit more comfortable and that whole brake feel a little bit more confident on the vehicle. We also went to ABS Plus technology. Now, what is that? That is a software extension of the ABS system. It is very much like a yaw control or a stability program that is active during all braking, not just panic braking as ABS is, but particularly important during cornering. And the best way to describe that is if you go into a corner a little too hot and the back end wants to swivel out on you and you're touching the brake and it's only making it worse, ABS Plus kicks in automatically and starts to apply the brakes to an opposing wheel or wheels to bring the attitude of the vehicle back into line, to make it a little bit more comfortable for you to get around that corner. It's very sophisticated, and it is a Daimler Chrysler first time we're using this system in a vehicle. Suspension and handling, and here we want to talk a little bit more about the wheels and tires package. Now, this addresses a number of things. We could actually list that under the styling and construction aspect of the vehicle too. We went to the bigger rotors and disc assemblies, and now we need to go to bigger wheels. The standard size wheel and tire package is going to be a 15-inch wheel with a 205/65 series tire. And that gives you a lower profile tire, so less bending in the sidewall during cornering. So again, a car that's not going to tend to slide sideways on you in cornering. It also fills out the wheel well a lot better. People like big wheels, big tires. It makes the vehicle look like much more of a performance vehicle. So that's the smallest you can get. On a sedan, you can go up to a 16-inch wheel and tire package. On the coupe, you can go to a 17-inch wheel and tire package. So it provides better handling, but also for you guys, when you're presenting the vehicle, well, that's a selling feature. It just looks better as well. The other five-core system that we really want to highlight here is the powertrains. Now, we've done an awful lot of work with this vehicle, and this is where we probably had our hands the most full with what we had to do to bring the vehicle up to the standards we wanted it to be at, to benchmark against some of the world-class vehicles out there in this category. Now, we offer two engines, a 4-cylinder and a V6. These engines, however, do share some common features between them. One of which is they are quieter and they are more powerful, and we'll look at that in detail as we go through each individual engine. We've stiffened all the componentry, and by that we mean we've stiffened the blocks themselves. They're ribbed to make the case a little stronger. We've also stiffened any of the mounting flanges and arms of any of the componentry that traditionally hang off a motor. We've also made them quieter by using the dual hydroelastic motor mounts that are liquid-filled, that prevent any engine vibration from being transmitted into the chassis, into the uniframe and rail construction of the vehicle, and into the passenger cabin. We've refined the air induction system by 15%, again, to appease some of the noise, and we use baffles and resonators in there as well. We've gone to a 5-year, 160,000 kilometer coolant to extend the service intervals on the vehicle. We've also gone to platinum-tipped spark plugs on the vehicles as well. But if we look at each engine individually, starting with the 4-cylinder, it's a 2.4 4-cylinder. It's an all-aluminum engine. It features a 16-valve double overhead cam architecture. It puts out 150 horsepower, 167 pound-feet of torque. Very, very peppy engine. And one of the things that I need to explain is these dual counter-rotating balance shafts. What are they and what exactly do they do? Any 4-cylinder engine is going to have a tendency to be very much a vibration-prone engine. There's an awful lot of vibration built into just the dynamic structure of a 4-cylinder engine. And how do you want to compensate that so it's not transmitted right into the drivetrain and into the cabin? Well, we build, as part of the engine assembly, two shafts that turn in opposite direction to the crankshaft, but at twice the speed. And what that does, it creates a harmonic vibration that is at the same harmonic wavelength as the crankshaft, but slightly out of phase. And the two have a tendency to cancel themselves out. Now, the best analogy I can use for this is if anybody has ever been in a small plane or in a helicopter and they make you put on these big headsets, and as soon as you put them on, you can't hear the engine. Well, what it's doing is feeding in those frequencies that are out of phase, and they cancel each other out. So that's what those shafts do. And the benefit and the seat of the pants feel that you can demonstrate is if you're driving during a demo drive, just put your hand on the shift lever selector, and you'll notice there's very little vibration coming through there, through the drivetrain. This engine also meets LEV emission standards, which stands for low emission vehicle. Now, I want to give you the heads up here because as you go through the year, you might see articles in Road and Track, Car and Driver, some other publications, mostly American publications, that are going to talk about this 2.4 cylinder engine as a ULEV, or ultra low emission vehicle. And that's a little bit misleading. Yes, the 2.4 is a ULEV, but only in California trim. In Canada, it is always an LEV, a LEV vehicle. Now, this is where the big news is, the new 2.7 all-aluminum V6. Now, you're probably a little, whimsical, a little quizzical about where this engine came from. Well, it is the same engine that we put in our Concorde and our Intrepid. And if you pop the hood on one of those, which way does it run? North-south, correct? You pop the hood on the Sebring, it runs east-west. Same engine? Absolutely. That engine was designed from the get-go back when we first launched it in '97 to be adaptable, so we could flip it 90 degrees and use it in a whole range of vehicles. And this is just the beginning. We really love this engine. It is very, very efficient, and it is a very powerful power plant. You see up here, we're putting out 200 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque with this engine. That's a huge jump from the 168 horsepower that we had with the last 2.5 V6 available in the Stratus Breeze Cirrus. This engine also features an MTV, or manifold tuning valve, which is a little valve that's operated by a little electric motor that opens the channels in the induction system to allow better flow through and to really keep you in the sweet spot of the torque band, to really give you that get up and go on acceleration. It has a molded PA66 nylon intake. Now, a lot of jokes have been made about what is PA66 nylon. Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's a very, very light material. It's embedded with fiberglass mesh, a little bit of particles of fiberglass, and it's a very stiff structure. We're able to mold it very smooth on the inside, very much as if you had done a port and polish job on the intake system. It increases the flow through. We're able to gain, just by doing it like that, by making it out of this polymer material, a 1.5 horsepower increase right there and then. It's also very strong, and it resists any heat and cold expansion and contraction. It's the last thing you want in the engine compartment with all the temperature fluctuations is your induction system to shrink and expand. So that's what PA66 nylon is. Now, this is very important. I really want you to make a note of this and to use this in your presentations. This is a high compression engine, yet it uses regular gas, and it does achieve on regular gas 200 horsepower. When you look at the competition, and as soon as you move into their performance or premium engine, a V6 or inline 6, you also get a little sticker with it that goes on the gas cap that says premium fuel required. Now, the way prices have been on gasoline in the last few months, I'd much rather be putting regular than premium, and I think your customers will appreciate that little detail as well. This engine also meets LEV, or low emission vehicle standards. Now, here you can see a graphic representation of the differences between the 2.7 and the old 2.5. You can see by this graph that there's a huge jump in horsepower output on these engines, and don't take my word for it, get out and drive it, you'll really feel the difference. I wanted to talk a little bit about market share here in Ontario as far as what we've done with four-cylinder engines to date. Well, we're not doing too bad. We've got 31% market share right now. When we go over to the current V6, well, there's where there's room for improvement. We currently stand at about 3%. Now, this is some of the potential we see. With the four-cylinder, we believe we can go to 54% or 54.7 nationally. The 2.5, well, it's still at 3%, but with the new 2.7, we figure we can capture 28% of the market. And the way we're going to do that is get them out there, get them driving the vehicle, get them to experience what a huge jump in performance this vehicle represents. The transmissions have also been improved for the Sebring. They're a lot stiffer, again, to eliminate any noise, vibration, or harshness in the transaxle drivetrain combination. We've gone to a 4-speed automatic transmission as standard equipment on all Sebrings. The 4-speed automatic with auto stick is available on the LXi, and that is a really wonderful feature. It gives you some of the fun and enjoyment of a manual transmission, but also the practicality of just letting the transmission control module take over and shift it for you as you go down. Get familiar with that feature. Make sure you're comfortable demonstrating how you can accelerate, how you can downshift, how you can maximize the torque range of the vehicle before you go out on a demo drive with your customer. Now, the PCM and TCM, now that stands for Powertrain Control Module and Transmission Control Module. And they communicate at a software level. They talk to each other constantly and monitor actions such as the air compressor or air conditioning compressor cycling, the EGR valve, the cooling fan. And they will suspend operation of those for a fraction of a second sometime to maximize acceleration, so nothing is taken away from the get up and go of the powertrain. The other system we want to talk about, and that is one that is really self-evident when you're doing your demonstration, is comfort and convenience. Because as soon as they climb into the vehicle, they're going to notice it's an all-new interior. We've talked about in the past how we design our interiors, how we even design our exteriors. We use systems called the CATIA system, which stands for Computer-Aided Three-Dimensional Integrated Application. And very briefly, to explain what that is, it is a software system and a database system that allows us to have our engineering department, our design and planning department, our suppliers, platform team, marketing, all interconnected within their computer system, within their network, so that each one is talking constantly to each other. And that way we can develop a vehicle all together, as opposed to in the past, one department might have been working on suspension and drivetrain, and it doesn't jive with what design is doing. Well, this way we maximize the efficiency of the process. We also use virtual reality simulators when we're designing our interiors. They literally look like a big sort of Sega game station that you'd go and play with at Palladium. You sit in there with goggles, gloves, and you can basically visualize the new interior of the vehicle. And then we can adjust things. We can say, well, listen, you know, the instrument panel needs to come forward 1/8 of an inch. The center stack needs to move up 1/4 of an inch. And that's what was used to design this interior. You look at the center stack in the vehicle, you'll notice that all the primary controls for HVAC, for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and for the audio controls have been moved up and out of the way of the shifter selector, again to maximize the ergonomics. Everything falls within your peripheral line of sight. You never really have to take your eyes off the road. You get very familiar with the vehicle very, very quickly. We've added steering-mounted cruise control functions. There are 5 buttons on this cruise control system. We feature a tap-up and tap-down acceleration and deceleration mode, and it moves in 3-kilometer increments. Another neat feature that we've incorporated into the cruise control module is a memory-retained feature. And now what that means is if you're on the highway and you pull over at a gas bar and you run in, you fuel your vehicle, you go in, grab a snack, and you come back, your engine's been off for 10, 15 minutes, get back in it, start it up, get back on the highway, you hit resume, it's going to go right back to the last speed that was recorded when you were driving. It's a nice little convenience feature to have. We also feature a direct-fed continuous battery outlet. Now, that's a bit of a double-edged sword. For anybody who's on the road an awful lot, such as myself, it's kind of nice to be able to plug in your cell phone, go in, have lunch, and your phone stays and continues to be charged. Same with laptops. However, do explain to your customers if you leave it in there for a few days, you might run down the battery and then you might need to use those battery boost terminals under the hood after all. The seats are all new. All the refinements that you have seen so far on the new generation of minivans, well, the same thing has been done. The same people have basically applied that technology to the seats on the Sebring. They offer an awful lot more cushion support. They extend further behind the legs. We have a lot more bolstering, again, to give it that sports sedan, sport coupe feel, as the case may be. They also feature a traveling inboard seatbelt buckle, which means when you're buckled in and then you decide to adjust your seat back or forwards, it's going to move with you. So it's not going to start pinching on you and you're going to have to undo it or whatever. Because I know a lot of people sometimes as they're driving, they just might move it a little forward or back, and you don't want to be undoing your seatbelt at that point. The HomeLink universal transceiver. Now before I get into a lengthy explanation, and I'm not actually going to do a lengthy explanation of what that is, if there's one thing you take away from this immersion today is go back to your store, open the glove box, take the owner's manual out of the vehicle, go sit in a quiet corner and read it from cover to cover. And if you do that, you will have achieved something that most of your customers will never do. You'll have an advantage over them in your presentation, because I probably don't need to tell you how often you get a vehicle that comes back on trade after 3, 4 years, and you open the glove box and the owner's manual is still sealed in the original plastic, correct? Well, if you go through it, you're going to find all kinds of tips about how to operate some of the systems and how to program some of the features in the vehicle. One of the things is this HomeLink universal transceiver. First of all, we're not the only manufacturer to offer this system, but most other manufacturers only offer it in their higher-tiered vehicles, in their luxury line, not in a vehicle in the price category of a Sebring. This is a really nice feature. It allows you to get rid of all these awkward little bricks and boxes that operate your garage door openers, your security systems at home. Take a minute, get familiar with the operation so you can explain it to your customers. Another nice feature that we have is the traveler's display. Now, whether it's called a traveler's display, an overhead display, or an EVIC, it's basically the same unit that we have in a lot of our vehicles. It gives you a readout on direction, the compass direction, temperature, whether in US or metric, distance till empty, fuel consumption, and so on. It's really practical. It might sound like a bit of a bell and whistle feature, but once you get used to using it, you almost can't live without it. A lot of the competition do not offer this feature in their vehicles. We've finally gone to a 60-40 split bench folding rear seat. Now feel free to applaud, because I know that this was a, there you go. That is a really nice feature. It enhances the versatility of the vehicle, certainly. And if you notice on the leather-faced seating, we're offering a pull-down armrest between the two sections, and it is part of the 60 portion of the split back. We've also improved the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Now, we talked about the NVH reduction that we wanted to achieve with this vehicle, that we wanted to make it as quiet as, let's say, the Passat, the Audi, the Accord. And the way we did that, by refining the air conditioning system. We also wanted to increase the airflow, so it's quieter, it provides faster cool down, and it also is a little bit easier to operate, more intuitive. All the primary controls have been redesigned using standard ISO icons. So I know I just said to read the instruction manual, but this is something you can operate without even looking at it. Another thing we're offering is a 4-disc in-dash factory-installed CD changer. There's a lot of CD changers out there with the rest of the vehicles in this price category, but most of them use a cartridge-based system for loading and unloading your CDs. So you've got to take the cartridge out of the player, you've got to load your CDs in it, and then you've got to pop it in. It's a bit of a nuisance, and most of the time people just forget about it, and they end up driving for about 1.5 years with the same CDs and eventually not listening to them at all. Our system is quite different because it's like having 4 individual CDs within the automobile, because you can put in each CD individually, you can eject them individually, and you can randomize the play. So a really nice feature, well worth demonstrating as well. The last 5-core system we want to talk about with the Sebring sedan is safety and security. Now, a lot of the things that you might be familiar with from the new minivan, from the RS platform, are also available in the Sebring. Now, first of all, we have gone to the ISOFIX or latch child tether anchor system. And that basically is the 3rd vehicle that we have launched this year with that system, and it's going to become a standard. Child seats will be available to be purchased at baby stores, Toys R Us, whatever, where it will work with that system. And you have to remember, and please explain the benefit to your prospects, to your customers, that 80% of current child seats are installed incorrectly. Most people don't know how to latch it properly because they have to use the belt, they got to pinch it a little tighter, and they don't do it correctly. With this system, there really is no mistaking when the seat is installed correctly. So we've gone to that. We're also using seatbelt pretensioners. On deployment of the airbag, on impact, this will reel you in. It activates very quickly. There is a charge, a little squib that detonates and retracts the seatbelt very quickly and pulls you back. Then, as you move forward, there is a constant velocity retractor that allows you to fall back towards the airbag slowly. We also use multi-stage airbags that again use 2 different igniters or squibs and operate them either alone or in tandem depending on the speed and velocity of the impact. We've got dynamic side intrusion protection, crumple zones, of course, that are again tied into the whole rail-through construction. The cross member that I showed you on the suspension and handling is designed to submarine, to go underneath the vehicle in a severe impact, to again remove any intrusion into the passenger compartment on the vehicle. Now this vehicle will exceed current national front impact standards, and also a running change through 2001 model year. We're also going to exceed or meet 2003 head impact standards, again using these baffles that are mounted in the headliners and pillars. Before I go any further, I want to show you a little video that we have outlining what's available in the airbag technology, in the multi-stage airbags and also the new side airbag technologies with Sebring.
Standard equipment next-generation multi-stage driver and front passenger airbags work with an energy-absorbing steering wheel, steering column, and instrument panel knee bolster to provide supplemental restraint in a frontal impact. Combined with seat belts, which must always be worn properly, the airbags can offer significant crash protection. Next-generation multi-stage airbags provide the appropriate level of restraint based on the severity of the impact. In severe events, the airbags deploy at full speed. When the impact is less severe, the airbags deploy less forcefully. This reduces exposure to the airbag and enhances occupant safety. Supplemental side airbags are integrated into the roof, just above the side windows. These curtain-type airbags provide enhanced head protection for front and rear outboard occupants in a side impact. Each bag deploys independently. A left side impact deploys only the left bag and vice versa. When the bag deploys, it opens from behind the headliner. Supplemental side airbags are optional only on Chrysler Sebring for 2001.
That is quite a remarkable technology, and it is definitely a Daimler Chrysler first as far as a manufacturer. A few things that we want to point out just to keep in mind. It is a roof-mounted curtain system. It is only available on the Sebring sedan. It is not available on the coupe or, of course, on the convertible. It really wouldn't work very well with the convertible top mechanism. What's neat about it is a smart technology. It will only deploy on the side that's impacted at the time, again saving on repair costs. And what's really wonderful about it is that it protects not only the front occupants but the rear occupants as well, the outboard occupants anyway. Now, we've also gone to a 3-point seat belt at all 3 positions on the rear seat of the vehicle, again to address some of the occupant safety concerns and take the initiative in that direction. Now, this is a really neat feature. It's the emergency trunk lid release handle. It's a glow-in-the-dark T-handle. And the reason we've put it there is there's growing concern out there of small children inadvertently locking themselves in the vehicle. You know, a lot of kids, you know, sometimes have access to the key fob. They want to run into the vehicle, grab, you know, the ball that they left or their toy or whatever on the back seat, and you never know what could happen. And as a parent, you might not be aware that they might have climbed into the trunk inadvertently. Anyway, it's there for that purpose. It's very, very bright. We did test it out with an individual on our launch tour, and he was out in 10 seconds. Now I want to focus your attention on the 2001 Sebring Coupe. We're calling this vehicle athletic, refined, sophisticated, very aggressive in its style. You look at the front end, it is distinctive, it's very, very bold, it's a lot tighter. It's a smaller vehicle than the sedan, certainly. Now we wanted to position this as a true sports coupe. Now this vehicle was designed entirely on the exterior by our design studio at Chrysler Tech Center in Auburn Hills, Michigan, but it is based on the ST22 platform that it shares with the Mitsubishi Eclipse. And that vehicle, the Eclipse, has been getting great reviews as a sports coupe throughout the world. It's well worth your time to go through it and take a look at some of the archived articles on that vehicle to really do a comparison, because they are talking about the same vehicle mechanically. It's built at the MMC plant in Normal, Illinois. We are a 40% stakeholder in Mitsubishi, so basically it is another one of Daimler Chrysler subsidiaries of vehicles at this point. It features a new 3-liter, 200 horsepower V6 engine. Now this is a huge improvement over the last coupe that we had. And I know some of the concerns out there were, well, you know, the last one was a Mitsubishi, it was really underpowered. Well, that was a concern for our platform engineers and marketing team. And they went to the table with the MMC people and said, look, if we're going to work together again, are you going to deliver the goods? You got something up your sleeve? And you remember at the beginning I mentioned how excited the platform team was a year ago when I went down to the Immersion? Well, the room where the people were displaying this new 3-liter engine, that was really quite unbelievable how excited they were in there. There was a real enthusiasm that they had something real special to show us. And 200 horsepower, when you get out there and try it out, you're going to definitely feel that. We're also offering, and you can applaud at this too, finally a 5-speed manual with the V6. We're also featuring with the new, with the auto stick, we've remapped it completely to give it crisper shift points with the coupe. It is a sports coupe, so it's got to behave that way too. We've eliminated the safety feature that allowed the auto stick to shift for you 400 RPM short of red line. Like the sedan with the auto stick will do that. You get a little too close to red line, it'll take over and shift it into the next gear. The coupe won't. You get up to the red line, you're going to bang into the fuel shutoff, the rev limiter. And all of a sudden, you sound like Paul Tracy pulling into the pits. Now, when you get out there, please don't do that, because it'll all look bad on me. It's just something you need to explain to your customers. And again, it was a customer request. They wanted to make it rev right up to the top of the power band. What have we done as far as refinements on this vehicle? Well, it is a McPherson strut front suspension with an upper control arm or cross member. It's very, very stiff assembly. It does allow some camber adjustment in it. The rear is a full multi-link rear suspension setup there as well. We've tuned the ride based on the 16-inch or 17-inch wheel and tire package. And when I say tuned, the shocks are revalved. They're different valving. They're a little stiffer on the 17-inch wheel. So make sure that your customer understands that because it might not be for everybody. We've gone to a speed-sensitive steering. It'll get progressively tighter as you turn in, feeds back a little bit more information as the speed increases. And these are pretty impressive numbers. Bending stiffness up 90%, torsional stiffness up 9%. So remember everything I said about making sure the suspension works to do its job correctly, to keep the tires planted firmly on the road? Well, it does. We've also wanted to benchmark this vehicle as far as NVH reduction was concerned, and we were able to exceed the standard set by the Honda Accord Coupe, which was the benchmark vehicle here. It has lower road and wind noise in that vehicle. We've gone to an aperture body construction, like on the sedan, so no seams as well. A triple bulb ceiling on the door glass, again to minimize wind noise. A full NVH acoustical package that includes full wheelhouse isolators, dampeners, a constrainable, conformable material that's used throughout the vehicle, and the baked-on mastic that we use in the paint baking process to, again, isolate the vehicle from noise as well. So that's basically the Sebring Coupe. And coming very, very shortly, we're going to have a real treat for you in a few months. Anyway, that wraps up the Sebring Immersion presentation. On behalf of Daimler Chrysler Academy and all the other trainers, I want to thank you for participating in today's module.